Good evening and welcome to Generation Movie for tonight. What are we? We're in June already, Rich.
We are more than halfway through June, my friend. It's June 19th. Juneteenth.
It's Juneteenth. A solemn holiday in the United States now. I think it's a very good holiday. A lot of good things going on.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of celebrations around the country, as well as heritage and cultural. We're going to talk about a cultural film tonight that's for us, in our DNA as nerds. Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. I'm ecstatic that we're here tonight. Let's see what else. Let's do Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. Boom. And then boom. And then we can put it up here. Boom. And we have all kinds of fun graphics. I'm JW Colwell, choosing wisely. Oh, you're choosing poorly. That's terrible, Rich.
Dude, you've known me how long? You should know that's the story.
I'm just along for the ride. I didn't. Did you do that? Wait, can I ask a question? Did you do that as a reaction to mine, or did you have that already done?
I didn't have it done, but when I saw yours, I was like, well, we got to go for that.
We got to go. Okay. Welcome, as always, to my co-host, my archaeological partner in crime for this excavation of the Indiana Jones franchise, Rich Drees of FilmBuff Online and the Philadelphia Film Critics Circle. Correct? Did I get it right this time? Get it right? Did I get it right?
Mm-hmm. Hey, how's it going? It's been a crazy week for me, man. I mean,
you're just bouncing through.
We we recorded early for last week. We weren't live,
you had a very busy week, and I want to congratulate you on that busy week. And then I also want to say I hate you. But other than that, everything's great.
Yeah,
you have seen something I want to see, so I am fairly jealous. But
I'm not sure what my embargo is on that either. I know it's screened at Cannes, hint, but
it may or may not involve somebody we're going to talk about tonight, hint.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, and if you enjoy us hinting at you through the computer, by all means, subscribe to our channel, the YouTube channel for the Indie Escape Network. YouTube is a great place to watch our show. All of our shows are there. All of the over 45 shows we've now completed in this maniacal Machiavellian run through films as we see fit. We also, of course, have the Indie Escape Network Facebook page. By all means, check out the Facebook page. A lot of good stuff going on there. Mm-hmm. And I am going to join. Got to get some comments out of the way. Good evening, friends. Good evening, Ken.
Hey,
Thank you for joining us. Ken, not in trouble, which is always a good start of the week on Generation Movie. Hello, Kathy Frazier. Thank you for joining us. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, Joe Ridgely. Thank you so much. And Joe Ridgely says, "Chasing Amy." He has seen that too.
Yes,
that was a Tribeca. Rich has been busy.
That was a Tribeca. I wanted to. I did an interview with the director and the producer, real quick red carpet thing, and I just haven't had a chance to transcribe it. I'm hoping to get to it in the next 48 hours or so.
But that movie's got a big buzz.
Yeah, I've got a lot of Tribeca reviews. I'm still trying to get through.
Churn.
I'm still
watching. You're churning.
I still have access to a few things. Yeah. I saw a great one today, actually, called Cinnamon, with Pam Grier has a supporting role in it as the head of a deaf head of a small town crime family, and she doesn't speak a word. It's all just presence, and it's an amazing performance for not having
if you're gonna
a little bit of sign language, but that's it. Oh my gosh, she was amazing in it.
Well, that's interesting. Anytime you put Pam Grier in a movie, you do get presence for sure. As you know, like it's what 80, almost 50 years in the making with regards to her presence. Mm-hmm. Joe Ridgely writes, "I need to find the Last Crusade pinball machine. I was addicted in college. It had a video game aspect too. Yeah, I mean, the pinball games that we had that came out around franchise stuff is always super cool. Like the Wizard of Oz for pinball machine. There's a Terminator 2 pinball machine that's really good. Of course, Star Wars pinball machines are great. We're going to start tonight off with the bludgeoning summer of 2023 at the box office.
Woo. Movies are back.
It's a bloodbath, like, and it only gets worse from here. And then I do want to talk about a trailer that dropped that you may or may not. I know you've seen the trailer. I'm sure you've seen the trailer. I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I think there are stupid things. And then I think there's this trailer, which is just amazingly, mind-numbingly only Sony bad.
Okay, right? I know exactly what you're talking about.
For every 2 steps forward they take with their animated Spider-Man films, their live-action Spider-Man films are a train wreck of epic biblical proportions. Like, they are just, what are you doing? What? And then, we'll talk about that in a moment. But we do have to talk about the bloodbath that's ongoing. This past weekend, everybody thought there was going to be a charge at the box office. But as of this morning, The Flash was about under the projections had it at anywhere from 70 to $85 million. It grossed 55, Rich.
Yeah, it was ugly.
And then Elemental, what Disney, like, of all the things that Disney is accused of, being woke, trying to groom children, all this weird shit that's happening, the biggest crime to me is what they've done to Pixar.
I would agree with you there.
Pixar is like, they've trained people to not love Pixar movies, and I didn't think it was feasible. I didn't think it was possible, but Elemental is the third Pixar, kind of like, after last year's Lightyear, Elemental comes in, and Elemental barely grosses what The Good Dinosaur grossed. And while my nephews love The Good Dinosaur is a lesser Pixar film of epic proportions.
Indeed. I think, well, I mean, this is kind of like pandemic fallout in a way. Bob Chapek's fault, definitely, because he basically, during the pandemic, rather than hold Pixar films, he pushed them onto Disney Plus. And I think for families, he's kind of taken the luster, the specialness of a Pixar release away.
Well, and that's the thing, because all the Pixar movies were great.
Yeah, I could just go see a Pixar. I can wait, 6 weeks on a Pixar movie, and then it will be on Disney Plus. I don't have to take my kids out to this theater. I don't have to, fight traffic, pay for parking, pay for all that popcorn and everything else, and all the snacks and stuff, and tickets and blah 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 blah. When I can spend $7.99 a month and get the movie and 100 other things.
Well, and the Pixar movies he chose to release during the pandemic, Soul, Turning Red, they're great movies. They are phenomenal films, right? They're
both
really
those films. It breaks my heart that they are not better.
They don't have the aspiring luster they should, because they're both fantastic. Soul's amazing, and Turning Red,
Stone Cold classic.
So Elemental is, and what you're going to have is critics saying Disney's, going woke and going broke and but that is not what is happening here. So that particular narrative needs to be stopped in the bud. Yes. Nip it in the bud. Exactly. This is one of those narratives that's getting pushed, and it's not a real narrative, and we want to end it. The fact that Elemental bombed is sad. For many people, mostly the Pixar people, and they're firing the people that aren't doing good Pixar movies, because the person who directed Lightyear got fired from the company, which is a first in Pixar history. When a director has a failed Pixar movie, usually they get a second or third opportunity to right the wrong. And so it's just weird that we're funneling out Pixar talent. The Flash bombing, here's the thing. You and I have talked about it. I'm going to say it to you. I'll say it to everybody who's watching our show. There is no tie to these DC movies, and the theater and the audience knows it. So in a way, it's like the Pixar situation. If you have James Gunn getting ready to pick a new Superman and a new Lois Lane in the next couple of months, right? We're gonna have a new Superman. We're gonna have a new Lois. Where Andy Muschietti is gonna move from directing The Flash to directing The Brave and the Bold, right? And James Mangold is gonna go from Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny to another film, like another film for DC. So we're looking at this prospects. The Flash, Blue Beetle.
Mangold is doing Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing. That's right. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember it, and I didn't want to say the wrong name. But okay. So you have Blue Beetle, Aquaman, and the Flash as the last remnants of the discard bin of the Snyderverse. And there's an ending at the end of the Flash. You can stay all the way through the credits if you want, but it got such a response in the theater I was in watching it. Like, we stayed for that.
Exactly.
And and it's just a bad ending. It's not, it's not even as cool as the ending for Black Adam, which is at least cool.
Yeah. The tag scene for Flash is pointless. But at this point, I don't think anybody's really concerned about if these things line up. If Blue Beetle kind of exists on its own, I know there was in the trailer a reference to somebody calling Batman a fascist, and there may be some. That's open to a debate among comics fans. That's only been going on for 35 years since Dark Knight Returns came out.
He's moderately fascist because he keeps files on his friends and enemies.
Mm-hmm. But do people only watch these movies now because they're going to be part of, to see what else is being set up and everything?
It's the Marvelization of things. Everybody wants a tie-in of some sort.
And I find that distressing because I didn't love Flash. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
Keaton was great. Keaton was great. Keaton should get another Batman movie. There, I said it. I said it out loud. It's the dirty secret coming out of Flash. Keaton looks great. He looks like he's having a blast. He looks like he understands the character better than he did in '89 when he was, you know what I mean? Like 89 and 92. I don't think he knew what he was in for, right? And now he kind of gets it.
Yeah, we get some idea of reports on some of the other films and decisions that were going on there that suddenly are thrown. We get some new light on them in the fact that the Flash ends a certain way with, and I'm not going to spoil that cameo because I didn't know it going in, and I loved it. I lost my mind laughing. Great cameo, but it originally ended with Superman, Supergirl, and Michael Keaton Batman on the steps outside the courthouse, meeting with Barry Allen. And that's why, people are like, wait, why are we getting Michael Keaton in the Batgirl movie? Why did Michael Keaton shoot some scenes for Aquaman that have apparently been scrapped now? Because they were setting up a new status quo going forward. And, all of that's getting kind of rinsed away. So they're trying to make everything as...
Well, they're trying to make it as palatable as possible.
And self-contained as they can. So... they totally scrapped Batgirl, which is still a stupid fool idea, especially with how people have been reacting positively to Keaton here in Flash.
Yeah, because I feel like him working with a younger Bat person would have been kind of phenomenal because he's great in the scenes where he's explaining things out. He also has an incredible sequence where, like, I got to tell you, my favorite moment in the movie is where Batman's like, they're like, where Barry Allen says to him, "What about Gotham?" And he's like, "Oh, Gotham's fixed.
Yeah.
I took care of all that. Gotham's been fine for years." And I'm like, I turned to somebody I was with and I'm like, Michael Keaton's Batman won Gotham. He won Gotham. He beat everybody. Like, that's the greatest thing ever. But I'm concerned about this gross. I'm also concerned about the bloodletting that is happening all over the place. It's not just the Flash and Elemental. You have other movies like Little Mermaid's taken on water, hasn't caught on internationally. Transformers has a big cut sequence at the end of it that ties things into something that
yes,
we should
haven't seen it, but I know what it is. But yeah,
right.
Which I think
and
bananas.
So they're all these kind of like, we're all trying to do the Marvel thing, and the problem with that, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but Marvel worked to such studious degree to get their tie-ins in a row. They're at the point now where there are too many, right? There are too many tie-ins. So they're having a tough time. And you have all these other studios kind of trying to do the same thing. And the bloodletting is just happy at the box office. We're about to have 2 more movies open this week. And then next week is Indiana Jones. And Indy has roughly 2 weeks to itself. And then you have Mission Impossible, followed 9 days later by Oppenheimer and Barbie. And the battle for screens, it's going to be worse than the Flash fight at the end. It's just going to be crazy. And so I think it's an interesting, we haven't had pipeline, we haven't product. We might not have product next summer because we're in a writer's strike. The WGA is still on strike. So
I think it would have benefited everybody if they had spaced this, if the studios had kind of spread this out a little bit more over time.
They were talking about
releases like this is just really
Mission Impossible. I don't think if they had their Carruthers, Mission Impossible would have done what they're doing. I think Mission Impossible could have pushed to November and just kind of laid waste to everything else. You know what I mean? Like, he has no problem where he opens his movies. Like, the fight that's going on with Tom Cruise going personally to NATO meetings, trying to get screens, is one of the wildest, and I'm afraid for the Barbie fans out there.
It's the craziest Tom Cruise story in quite a while, and let's face it, that man is just it
really is. And it's a little bit about last summer as well. I saved you last summer. I need you to make sure my movie gets the screens it needs to be the biggest possible hit it needs to be. And it's the first time where theater owners are kind of being wooed in a while. Like, think about it. Like, when was the last time a star wooed theater owners? You know what I mean? And Cruise is it's a hard press. Let's see some comments. We got 8 of them to catch up on. Let's see. I love Indiana Jones so much I have the entire set. Yes, Indy. Thanks, Jamie Hill. Thanks for joining us. If people don't know, Jamie's the mom from Skinamarink. So we have a star joining us tonight. Very nice.
Hi.
Joe Ridgely, stupid Sony. Joe, have you seen the trailer? Joe, wait till you see the trailer. Don't say stupid Sony. Don't agree with me until you actually watch the trailer that I'm going to put up later on the Loud Nerdy Facebook page. Flasher less than Black Adam. Yeah, it's wild.
Which is strange because Black Adam is the far worse movie.
Yeah, I think Flash is better than Black Adam.
Yeah.
Mainly because of ego. 130 million go, but they say it's done. Yeah, I mean it's not great for the first week, but here's the thing: these movies have a tough time propelling past the first week. A lot of talk about the actress played Supergirl. Yeah, Sasha Calle is amazing as Supergirl.
She's fantastic, and
the Keaton and
wanted more of her.
Yes, she's really good. She has some really great moments. There's her sequence on top of not the fight sequence. She has another sequence with Barry where she's basically talking about humanity, and like, she's not wrong. She's not wrong. Tell me when I tell some lies. Let's see what else. Let's see. I want the big cameo to get another movie. No, absolutely not. No.
I'm staying out of this one.
Yeah, no. I will give you this, Natasha. The big cameo is not responsible for the one he was in. I'll be kind. He's not responsible for the one he's in, but he can't have another shot. No. You would put him in Batman Beyond instead of Michael Keaton. Get out of here. Get out of here, Natasha Bagotsky.
I wouldn't mind seeing that actor come back and do something else in the DCU. I mean, like maybe play the Chief in a Doom Patrol film. I think he'd be an interesting choice.
Yeah, but he doesn't get to play.
There's some other thing. Yeah, maybe even a Perry White, I think might be an interesting.
That might not be bad. I wouldn't mind that. But, Natasha writes, are we due for the Revenge of the Indy? I have no idea what this means.
Yeah. No, next comment clarifies that.
Not Indiana Jones, I mean Indy movie. No, because here's the... Okay. So really quick, are we due for a Revenge of the Indy movie? No, because the Indy movies aren't opening well either. But was afraid
to bump in the box office overall.
Right, and the Indy movies are having trouble getting traction. So, I mean, we're going to have 2 movies that open this week, including one that has a former Oscar winner in it, and she's going to have a tough time getting out of the gates. And then immediately, so it's...
Yeah. I mean, there are some Indie movies out there that were...
No more bat nipples. And that's all you need to hear. That is all you need to hear. Although, again, for Joe and for Natasha, not his fault. Not his choice. Not his fault.
And Joe, I have a picture somewhere. I don't have it I don't have it available on the computer I'm using right now. But I do have a picture from a memorabilia auction of one of the Robin costumes from the infamous Bat Nipples episode, and I just took a close-up picture right of that nipple.
The cod pieces, I do have a picture of that. Just so we're clear, the cod pieces in that particular property were ridiculous.
Yes.
Terrible. But
and I want to circle back to indie films for a second. There have been a lot of good indie stuff that's come out this year that just didn't connect. I was really rooting for Polite Society, which I found to be a lot of fun. Not sure how to kind of describe it. My Big Fat Greek Wedding with kung fu fights and Indian cinema.
That's a good way to go. You're doing the player. You're playing the player. I think there have been some smaller movies that have come out. I think one of the things that's happening is, and it's kind of like and it's really weird. Tell me we're not at the point where Spielberg and Lucas look like the wise sages who said, hey, we're going to get into a point where no movies are going to get released except for big movies. And that's all that's going to be playing in all these theaters. And there's just going to be one theater for every movie. And then it's just going to be big movies. And I think that's where we're at. I will say that we've also had an interesting week with regards to, so The Flash opened, Elemental opened, and Extraction 2 on Netflix. I'm angry. It's I'm going to tell you, it's crap in the sense that I will give you the idea. It is enjoyable crap. Do you know what I mean? Okay. Like there are action movies that you can sell, at some point somebody called John Wick enjoyable crap, right? And and there's something to the Extraction series that for me I believe is the next pivot. But the problem there is we're never going to get to see it grow in a theater. I think people would want to see there's action sequences in it that rival the Wick, that try to do the Wick, right? So, I mean, we're in a weird place right now.
Yeah, but if you're looking to see a movie that's not a big blockbuster, you're looking for something that may be a little bit more grown up or what have you, or if you're looking for a stupid comedy, this weekend we've got Asteroid City coming up, the new Wes Anderson, so I'm going to be there, Thursday night, most likely. Or Friday, if not. And also the Jennifer Lawrence comedy, No Hard Feelings, which is like the first of a run of kind of raunchy comedies we're going to get. We've got this, we've got Joyride, we've got Bottoms,
we got Strays.
Yeah,
there's
I'm
excited
for Joyride, and I enjoyed it. But
not the Revenge of the Indies, maybe the Revenge of the Comedies. We haven't had big screen comedies do well in a while.
I would love to see that happen.
Yeah. But what we would also love to see happen is us talk about Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. And that is a great place to start and a great place to get into the meat and potatoes of our show. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It begins with production. Rich,
yes.
Would you have liked to see Indiana Jones and the Monkey King? Would you have? I was reading like stuff about the script, and the script leaked, and the script is brutal. Like it's weird. It's like a wonky like game you would get on Commodore 64. And I'm serious. And then they bring all these different people in. Like, the funniest thing about this Indiana Jones movie is it's the first one where they don't have a concept out of the box, right? They don't have, like, Spielberg is a little bit bored. He actually, when you're reading about this movie, Spielberg's a little bit bored. He's promised Lucas that he'll do 3, right? But in having to do this movie at the time when Lucas wants it done and Harrison Ford their schedules are arranged, Spielberg gives up Rain Man and Big. So, like, he has to give up, 2 of the most talked about scripts in Hollywood before Crusade comes out. He has to give them up. And I was reading that, and I'm like, can you imagine a Big directed by Steven Spielberg? Can you like, I know Penny Marshall did a good job.
Or it would be incredibly cloying. I'm not sure how he, it's like, I trust his hand, in moderating tone an awful lot, but Big script is something that really have to walk a fine line on. Because at some point you realize that relationship he has as a grown up with what's her name, and then when she realizes and sees him basically shrinking back to a kid, that's weird. I think is what you could say.
It's weird now. What about Rain Man? But I think that's a real interesting concept. At this point, Spielberg is tired of the franchise. So the first 3 like runs at the script are just, Rich, you're reading about it. It's brutal. It's brutality. It's we don't know what we're gonna do. There's one where Lucas wants to do a haunted house, and Spielberg's like, I've already done that with Poltergeist. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Right? I've already done that with Poltergeist. I'm
gonna throw out right now, Poltergeist is a Tobe Hooper movie. Spielberg was on set a few times, maybe suggested stuff. As a producer, that's his right to. But I think any of those stories saying that Spielberg shadow directed the whole movie are bullshit.
Okay, fair.
I think there's enough.
We've talked about it. We've talked about this on the show. We have a Poltergeist show. But I'm just saying,
last year. Go find it on our YouTube page.
Go find it on our YouTube page. Anyway, it was a good fight. What I'm saying is, like, there's a haunted script. There's a Haunted Mansion script. There's a Monkey King script. There's a script where the MacGuffin is the Garden of Immortal Peaches that has virtually the same thing with picking the wrong cup, picking the wrong peaches, not being pure of heart, which is utterly ludicrous. And if
you're not familiar with the Garden of Immortal Peaches, it's a Chinese myth.
Right. But I just found it like interesting. They get rid of the Monkey King because they get into the idea that, after Spielberg, after doing The Color Purple and everything like that, doesn't want to take anything where it could be derived the wrong way, because the Monkey King is actually a pygmy. So there's a whole thing where Spielberg is like he's nixing things left and right. And they eventually get to the point where they have a script. It gets rewritten. By the way, anybody that was involved with Temple of Doom is gone. Right? We lose both Hayek and Gloria Katz. And they basically, like, it just becomes a mess. A terrible, terrible mess where basically, eventually Spielberg gets to the point where he's like, I just did this movie with Jeffrey Boehm called Inner Space, which, by the way, wildly underregarded as a great sci-fi comedy from the 80s. Doesn't get nearly enough credit it deserves. And maybe we can give this Jeffrey Boehm guy a shot. And so he writes a script. He comes up with pieces that are there, and then the last revision gets done by this guy named Barry Watson, who happens to be Tom Stoppard, one of the great playwrights of American theater. And he comes up with everything with regards to Indy and his dad, and they figure everything out. They do they figure out the people who want to protect the Grail. They figure out, the Donovan is really the villain, not the Nazis. The guy who's hanging out with the Nazis is the villain. Brody gets captured in that screenplay, but the script is a mess, Rich. Like, up into a certain point when Jeffrey Boehm starts doing the revisions, they don't have a movie. They also fight over the dad character, right? Lucas doesn't want the father character in it. Spielberg wants it because it's area he's trodden before, right? So
and when Connery came in, when they finally decided, agreed on that, they're like, well, who else can be the dad of Indiana Jones but James Bond? Because this is our alternative to doing a James Bond franchise. So they went with Sean Connery. Connery comes in and asks for some things in the character of the dad as well. He asks, to give him some eccentricities and makes him. I think the quote is something like, "I made him less of a Yoda-like figure," which means, which I guess kind of says, like, dad was just dispensing wisdom,
right? And he also gives him a backstory of, and I did some research on this, and I feel we need a movie about this particular person. At one point, Connery goes to Spielberg and says, "I want to play Henry Jones as a kind of Richard Francis Burton." And if you haven't looked up Sir Richard Francis Burton, let me tell you, what a human being! Like, what an incredible human being. Born March 1821, died October 1890. He was a British explorer. This is Wikipedia reading. British explorer, writer, Orientalist scholar, soldier. He was famed for travels in Asia, Africa, and the Americas. He was an extraordinary knowledge of languages and cultures, and at one point was said to have known 29 different languages. And when you read that stuff, you go, why doesn't this guy have a movie? And why didn't Sean Connery make it? He also went on and did all kinds of sociological stuff about sex practices, ethnography, falconry, travel, human behavior. This guy sounds amazing. He also was in the British Army, but fought against the British Crown with regards to its colonialist tactics. So the colonial, a fascinating person to base a character on, and one of those history deep dives that you go, yeah, that's Sean Connery.
Or I could see Connery playing that as a person.
Okay, so a little bit of comments about what we have so far. Monkey King, does he become dessert at the end of the movie? No. No. There was one script where he was a good guy, and there's one script where he's a bad guy. And then Joe Wright, the kid from Boulder, has me disagree about Spielberg. I think we caught that on an episode. Yes, but Rich has a point. It is credited to Hooper. And then she talks in her sleep. Yeah, one of the things. This is something Natasha's bringing up that I was about to bring up. Connery not only comes up with this Sir Richard Burton character, he also ad-libs lines on set like it's nobody's business, including she talks in her sleep, and Spielberg kept it. So it's an improv line that made the entire set crack up when it happened. And Spielberg's like, we'll keep it. It's a good line. It works. So, and he changed other things. He made, He wanted the relationship to be colder, right? And so that they actually have to, like that the movie is kind of broken into parts. You have to go for the piece of the Grail first, then the diary, then his dad diary, and then for the Grail itself, right? So it's they do a lot of great revisions. What else? Did you find anything else in production that was interesting aside from Ben Burtt finally getting an Oscar?
I'm such a Ben Burtt fan; it's ridiculous.
No one is
a fan of a sound effects guy, but me.
We are. I am.
Yeah. I totally dig his work. I didn't find really too much. Once again, Vic Armstrong is back. This time, he wasn't hired on midway through the production to be Harrison Ford's stunt double. He's worked his way up to total stunt coordinator for this thing. Although Harrison Ford was still doing a lot of his own stunts, a lot of his own riding. Oh crap, what's his name? I just totally blanked on the
Pat Roach. Are you going Pat Roach?
Yeah, Pat Roach. Pat Roach is back again as a big giant Nazi that gets beaten up by Indiana Jones. It's very much a family affair in terms of like all the department heads coming back, and everybody kind of knows each other, knows how they work,
and everybody gets paid.
Films work.
Everybody gets paid as well. Like the budget goes from original Indy 48 million for this one. Although some of the people the design heads, like mechanical effects supervisor George Gibbs, called it the most difficult thing of his affair. He built the tank from scratch at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But
George Lucas was like, I want a World War I tank in there. I don't know what you're going to do with it, but I just want one in there. He came along and said, they went to a military museum, saw the tank and said, oh, that's great. I'm going to rebuild one out of steel. And then I'm going to build a second one out of aluminum that gets drugged by a tractor so we can put cameras and stuff on it. And then use the one we built for long shots.
Yeah, it is insane. And the only problem with it was that it went so slow, Rich, and was as mechanically inclined as the shark from Jaws. It broke down several times, and it went so slow that they had real trouble filming so that Ford looked like he was making, like when you watch the chase sequence at the end, if you're really paying attention, you can sort of see that the horse is out racing the tank, which shouldn't be a case. No. Also, another thing that comes up that you have to talk about in the production, they had an actress that was originally supposed to play the Allison Duty role of Elsa, but that actress was so scared of rats that once she saw it in the script, I guess she had read for the part, got the part, and then she basically they had to recast her because she finally, like when they're given asides, when you get in a big movie like this, you don't see the entire script. But once she got there and realized that the rats were coming in, even though they were all cool rats, like rats that didn't have any disease or any kind of like horrific thing going on with them.
Specially bred for
this movie. Yeah. Super cool. But she had to bow out. And so, but the production goes well. It comes in on budget, comes in ready to go. Effects are done by ILM. Everything gets done. And
I will say this movie does have, I think, the worst model shot of the entire franchise.
Are you going with the plane or are you going with the tank off the cliff? Because there's two.
Okay. Yeah. The plane after Henry Sr. Gets the seagulls to fly up. There's a shot of the side of the plane. It's coming in from screen left into, or actually, let me. It's not great. Yeah, it's coming in like this, and then you see birds flying at it. It's a terrible model. It's a poor shot. And I don't know how
that is one thing I'm going to say to everybody. Everybody, for two things. One, the movie is very enjoyable, right? We're going to talk about that when we get to criticism. But of all the stuff that's thrown at Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, right? We're going to talk about Crystal Skull next week, and we're going to have people saying it's trash. and everybody's gonna be fighting about it. But for all the stuff that's thrown at Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, what I will say to you is there are things here in Temple of Doom or in Last Crusade that are not great effects things. They're kind of wonky. And you know, the Donovan going off, not Donovan, but the Nazi going off the cliff doesn't look good. And the body still hanging to the thing when it hits the bottom doesn't look good. So, I mean, I think it's
another thing. There's another thing in that shot too, as it hits the bottom, the section around which the treads go, it just kind of like starts to
disintegrates. Yeah, it flops around and
it's like you can tell it's all like one total, you know, vacuum formed piece.
Two last production notes. So Spielberg. Go ahead. Well, we'll do one. I have two and you have one. Good. You go first.
Okay. Also, and this is really bad for this movie, I thought. The shot looking when they're in the library in Venice, and Indy goes up the spiral staircase.
The X
on the balcony, and he's looking down, and the shot looking back, the reverse shot back up at him. There is a, you know, there's supposed to be a bookcase and all sorts of books and stuff on there. It's a theatrical flat. It's not a real bookcase. It's just basically a piece of flat wood.
The X looks wonky too. The X looks wonky too. In two different shots, it looks like It looks like way more. Like, how do you not notice that X? Do you know what I mean? Like, I would also say
go ahead.
The two other production notes that I would say. Spielberg at near the end of the script writing with Bohm says, we need something for the end. We need like trials or something. So Spielberg comes up with the three trials, the breath of God, the name of God, and the leap from the lion's head. The lion's your car's being stolen. Live podcast.
I should be so lucky.
Let's see. Hold on, we got a comment and then one more comment. I still remember how disappointed I was with Connery and the rest of the cast of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's
not a good movie.
Why are we bringing that up? Don't bring that stuff up. That's bad juju, Joe. Yeah. We got a movie coming out in 2 weeks.
But I will say, despite the flaws that we have here, our nitpicks with certain effect shots and model work and things, I don't think it takes away from the enjoyment of the movie.
No,
I think 99% of the rest of the movie is absolute gold in terms of all the craftsmanship,
character work, real Nazi uniforms. Like they do a great job. And the last production note, they do. I just forgot what it was. I had it and I lost it and it's gone. And mother puss bucket. So he comes up with the trials.
The trials.
And what was the last thing? And what was the last thing I was talking about?
We don't have much of the movie left after that to talk
about. No. But the trials. Also, just that. Oh, the horses. I'm sorry. The horses at the end shot, riding off into the sunset. Just so we know, they're owned by the King of Jordan. They were the King of Jordan's personal stallions that were loaned to the film. And Indiana Jones rides off on a king's horse with his dad at the end of the movie. So
and Spielberg actually stayed at the King of Jordan's palace for a couple of days of the shoot while they were shooting in the Jordan.
Yeah, they were definitely
The Queen actually drove him out to set a couple of days too, which is insane to me. But
so speaking of,
it's kind of cool that they're like so cool about, you know, like, hey, they're shooting an Indiana Jones movie. I'm the king. Hang out here.
Speaking of kings and queens, Rich, a king's ransom would be had as we at the box office. So one of the things that comes up, like this movie, first off, budget's $48 million. You know, we always like talking about that, figure out exactly what we're looking at. Budget's 48. It opening weekend, it grosses $37 million at the box office in the 3-day weekend. It's not the largest opening weekend in 1989. That will later be done by Batman 3 weeks later.
Not surprising.
But it had the legs of the movie. Indiana Jones runs at an average of 9 weeks per theater. As we're starting to get to the change, Raiders, the Indiana Jones franchise, the Batman franchise is a great way to see the change. Number of opening theaters opening weekend, 2,327. right? It ends up grossing 197 domestically. It grosses 277 worldwide for 474. So worldwide, Rich, it actually beats Batman at the box office. Worldwide. Domestically it loses, but it beats the hell out of Batman all over the world, which will later change in due time. The other thing that comes up, the other Indiana Jones numbers that come up where you look at it, it's a 4-day Memorial Day record, right? In May 24th, 1989. The gross, it was one of the highest ticket prices ever charged at that point in American cinema, $7 a ticket. Woo! Woo! It beat everything. Like, it was the first time a Saturday grossed $11 million its opening Saturday. First time any movie had ever made over $10 million in one day. It had the record for the best 7-day performance, 50.2, which beat Temple of Doom from 1984. And it after 12 days, it had 77 million. And then it was the first movie ever to hit $100 million in 19 days. Records.
And so wide, or do you have more of those milestones to hit?
Oh no, the worldwide is utterly amazing. 277 worldwide. When you look at the domestic, when you look at it inflated, it's looking at 453 domestic. So we're talking a $500 million movie now, and it's astounding. No.
The numbers I'm looking at here, domestic and foreign gross together were 474 million.
Right. The adjusted for inflation,
1.16 billion.
Oh no, yeah, worldwide 1.1.
Yeah.
Yes, worldwide 1.16 billion, but 453 in America. It would be 453 today, to give you an idea. And we're talking the movies this summer. No, definitely not bad. The highest grossing movie this summer thus far, and well, this year the highest grossing movie is Mario Brothers, right? About 500 million. So it's Mario Brothers money for people who are paying attention to the box office now, and it's an astounding sum of money, and it doesn't outgross Raiders though. That's one thing that I found amazing. As you compare the numbers, Raiders' original gross to the domestic box office was 225 million, and again, this is a different one, right? We're talking about 9 weeks versus a year.
Yeah.
Water's good, Rich.
Yeah, I mean this does have a shorter run at the box office, which I think kind of counterbalances the fact that ticket prices were a little bit more.
But yeah, I mean it's an astounding run. As we jump to critical response then and now. Always a good place to look at things. It holds up, Rich. For me, it holds up. Now, the interesting thing though is, in rewatching these, I'm going to say to you something that I haven't settled. I understand the criticism then and now of this movie not being as daring as Temple of Doom. I think that might be a true criticism. I think Temple of Doom was over the top and they got smacked back, and then they kind of made this, which is a little bit more mature. It's a little bit more sure of itself, and it also has a lot going for it thematically that Temple of Doom doesn't have. Temple of Doom has all the thrills, but this one has the heart.
A step back from the edgierness of Temple of Doom. It feels a little bit safer. It feels a little bit more comfy, and that's fine. I mean, the edgiest thing is like, Indy and his dad both bang the same girl. Ooh.
The same German temptress, Rich. She's a German temptress.
Well, that's because she's a German temptress.
we don't like German temptress. So, tomato meter, we talk about Rotten Tomatoes on our show as a way to gauge past and present. It's a good way to do it. And also to see how the audience is. 84% with a 94 tomato meter, 94% for the audience. You remember Raiders was 93-96, and Temple of Doom was 76-82. So Last Crusade definitely is one of the most beloved in the franchise. I think it's one of the most beloved in the franchise because we're right around the time of Field of Dreams, and we're right around the time when, you know, like fathers and it was a recurring theme throughout the end of the 80s, where there were a lot of fathers movies and movies that brought fathers and sons together. And this is one of those movies that hits on that theme so well. I would also argue that Connery and Ford are perfect together. Like they are, like Ford and Connery together are, you know, you watch some of the sequences where they're like the sequence on the bike where they're talking about going to Berlin is one of the great Indiana Jones sequences, only because it's the first time we delve into how Indy grew up. You know, your mother kept her illness from me, and I didn't know about. It's the most serious moment in an Indiana Jones movie thus far, where you're, then they get on the ship and they're talking about, did I make you eat your vegetables? Did I send you to bed? No, I recognize your privacy. I let you grow up to be a regular person, and all this stuff. Like, and Indy's just kind of going, I just wanted a dad. I wanted somebody to take care of me. And you didn't do any of that. And he's like, you left when you started to get interesting.
And to be honest, and here's where I might not make friends. This all laid the groundwork for some interesting stuff that you do get to see in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles when you're dealing with younger Indy, the 10, 12-year-old Indy, played by Corey Carrier. You get a lot of his father being distant and Indy spending more time with his mom. And there are hints about a possible illness in her future. And you realize that, you know, if she does die between that and 15, 16-year-old Indy, as we see River Phoenix, that helps kind of really helps illustrate that wedge that has come between them. Disney Plus does have Young Indiana Jones Chronicles available right now. It's the 2-hour edited episodes together. So we lose George Hall as old Indy, which bums me right out because I thought he was
fun to watch. The eye patch Indy was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Some comments. It's always been my favorite. I think it's right there for me. Although I will tell you, rewatching Temple of Doom has made me, I don't know about you, but like the visceral thrills of Temple of Doom, there's something there. I don't know what. I can't really put my finger on it. Last comes in second in the franchise for me. Raiders is always number one. And then wait, no mention of River Phoenix. We're gonna get to River Phoenix. Give us a moment. He is fantastic in his brief role.
To go back to Ken's comment for a second, I don't think. Okay, I still have yet to revisit Crystal Skull, but at least among the three, the original three movies, there's not a bad movie there. So no matter how you rank them, I think everybody puts
it's a personal preference.
How you place Last Crusade over Temple of Doom is a personal preference, and I don't think there's a wrong way to do it.
I would also say that part of it comes in with your other film experience, and also coming into where you caught them. Some people caught Last Crusade first, so then you show Last Crusade to people, and then you show Raiders to people, and there's they look so alike, but they're, for me the thrills are definitely different. Like I was watching the tank stuff today. And the tank stuff, the action sequences are very good, and it's very funny, and it's engaging. But the tank sequence doesn't come close to Raiders. Doesn't come close to the truck chase. And I think when you're looking at the whole of the movie, I think Ford and Connery are great. I think the villains are lesser too. I think Belloc in Raiders is a great villain for Indy. He's his polar opposite. I think Donovan is like weak sauce. He's like weak sauce. That's one of the reasons I was thinking about like the revising the list, which sometimes happens. Maybe because Temple of Doom's villain, Molaram has a goal, and he's willing to put kids to work to find it, to get it. You know what I mean? He's a pretty evil character. So I think that's an interesting place. The critical response is then when you look at like I watched Siskel and Ebert with this. It was great. Roger Ebert loved this one and said, how could you not love it compared to the first one? And Gene Siskel's response is, because it's an exact clone of the first one, is why I don't love it. And so it became this ridiculous kind of the back and forth. And he's like, it's the exact same movie, Roger. You know, like, and I was watching it going, oh, that's amazing. But there were a handful of people who did not like it and were ecstatic to say they didn't like it. You had people who are the ones, Vincent Canby, and David Anson both praised it. Richard Corliss, Time, loved it. And they loved the B movie aspects of it, right? Wonderful things. And Roger Ebert especially enjoyed the sequences that were right out of Boy's Life, the old Boy Scout manual that, he loved the opening sequence with River Phoenix, who is one of those actors that wherever you saw him and whenever you saw him, the endearing tragedy of him passing away took away a great career. And what I would say is, if you love River Phoenix and Last Crusade, you owe it to yourself to go back to 1986 and see River Phoenix and Harrison Ford in the Mosquito Coast and get an idea of why, when they said somebody's got to play a young Indy, Harrison Ford said, get River Phoenix. He's the only one that's close to me at my age. And so River Phoenix is one of the unsung heroes of the movie. He's fantastic in that opening sequence. It's balls to the wall fun, including getting all of the chinks in Indy's armor that we see, the snakes, the scar, the whip, everything kind of gets checked off. And the idea that we lost River Phoenix, everybody and their brother, as we're getting towards the end of Indiana Jones, theoretically with the Dial of Destiny, everybody and their brother wants to talk about who could have played Indiana Jones. The person who could have played Indiana Jones that could have been passed the mantle would have been Ford's choice, would have been River Phoenix. I think if River Phoenix had survived the terrible night at a bad choice, I think River Phoenix would be, first off, having a really good career. Second off, would have been Harrison Ford's choice to take over the mantle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree. Now, let me ask you a question here, though, now that we're kind of in this segment of the film. My big criticism of Solo, a Star Wars story, is everything we know about Han Solo all happened to him in one weekend. Yeah, Kessel Run, gets the Falcon, blah, 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 blah. Here, it's even more condensed, but I think it works better. Here we see getting his hat, getting a spear of snakes, solidifying it belongs in a museum position.
What his look is going to be. I think
it works so much better here than in Solo, and I'm not sure why, though. I can't quite place my finger.
Here's the thing. Since you brought it up, and what I will say to you, it feels forced in Solo. It feels like it's a one, we're desensitized to it, right? We're desensitized to things. We've had prequels and we've had all kinds of things where people how did something happen? Oh, we killed all the sand people. We've had all of those things happen to us, right? And this was innocent. This was an innocent moment of the film where they decided to play around and have a good time, and they made exciting things. Like, I'll give you an example that nobody knows, that you might not know. The name, go back and look at the name on the cart, on the carts. Frank Marshall, right, when he used to do magic tricks on set, used to name his magic tricks on set from the name that's on the car in the movie. So there was a hint of whimsy to it, right?
Okay.
There was a hint of whimsy to that sequence. And in Solo, when we get to Solo, all those sequences happen in the same week. And then it just looks like it's there for fan service. And it doesn't seem organic. This seemed organic. And the reason it possibly seems organic, Rich, is it's the first time we saw something like this. It's the first time we saw a character get his foibles or his like it's condensed, right? It takes a short amount of time on film, and it's like how do I say this? You know, in Breaking Bad, when they had the first version of the blue meth, and it was okay, but it wasn't great. And then by like season 6, they had the blue meth, and the blue meth was better. Condensed. This is the condensed blue meth, and then the other meth that's early is solo, right? It's partly because of where we are with regards to geek culture. How do things become what they're supposed to be? And we've had years and years and years and years past 1989 of you know, how did Hannibal become a cannibal? How did Anakin become Darth Vader? How did all these things happen? And they're spaced out for us, and we're constantly revisiting characters to see how they become what they are. And this was done in an era of whimsy. It was, you know what I mean? Like the idea that
the approach is different. I would agree.
The approach is different. It's not fan service. They were doing it. I think they were doing a circus train, and then they were like, I bet you, I would say from the end product, they just said, well, what if we put snakes in the train? What if we make a real rhino? Like all of like they didn't like the rhino thing, so they spent another like $10,000 to make the rhino look better and the giraffes look better and shit. So I think maybe it just happened, and the reason we don't have as much criticism towards it is it was the first time we had it happen on screen. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the first time you get that ooh, that's what happened. Oh, we got
it
cut.
Doesn't feel as
forced.
I don't want to say cynical,
fan
but
service.
Forced. I'm thinking of that Patton Oswalt bit about
his
imaginary conversation with
George Lucas.
Lucas.
Yeah, here's the salt.
Well,
here's the salt.
Here's Boba Fett as a boy, and he's sad. That kind of thing.
Yes.
So
it's we're desensitized to it. This was the first. Like, can you think of another time when it happened, where you had a character get all the foibles and, you know what I mean? Like, it really doesn't exist. And then what happens is through nerd culture and the prequels and all the things that happen after Last Crusade, we get this blink where everything tries to do what this did in a matter of minutes.
I mean,
and it feels
you could
forced.
almost say it's a superhero origin segment. But
right, he gets the outfit. He gets the outfit. He gets the hat.
Yet. I mean, we get Superman. The movie kind of gives us that. Batman was still a couple of weeks away from being released,
right?
And that way, Tim Burton, sprinkles the origin through the movie rather than front.
Well, and he completely rewrites the origin. He completely rewrites the origin so that Batman is created by the Joker. Like he completely rewrites it, and it's okay. But it's the first time it's happened, so we're fine. Like I think this was the first time we were having dueling origin stuff, and I think it's a real interesting take. I would also say that one of the more interesting views of Indy and his father, right? The idea that it's not a good relationship, the idea that they haven't talked in 20 years, that he doesn't know what his son does, and that that he doesn't know that his son, that one sequence that was played up in trailers where he's like, they're trying to kill us, and he's like, it happens to me all the time. Like all of those things are amazingly, when you watch it in the thrill of the movie, they're incredible to watch, and they're completely different. Indy has posed a life of this thematic thing that I came up with tonight that I was rewatching. Indy has written his life to search out as many artifacts as he can find. His father's obsessed with one.
Yeah.
It's Indy kind of like, outside playing by the light of the lamppost, and I'm going to find everything. He only works on one thing. I'm going to find them all. It's the marble. It's the penny at the bottom of the Goonies well. I'm taking them all back. And I think that's an interesting way of looking at. Look at this. let's see. Ken writes, my problem with Temple of Doom's Kate Capshaw, I find her character whiny and annoying.
Fair.
Okay. It's a different, here's the thing. Two things are happening in Temple of Doom. They wanted a completely different version of Marion. They wanted a completely different character trope. And one of the character tropes in 30 serials was the damsel in distress who worked at the nightclub. And she's different from Marion. And so people view her as whiny, but they're different tropes. I think we're going to get a similar conversation in 2 weeks when we figure out what's going on with Phoebe Waller-Bridge that somebody can't talk about. But what I would say is whatever's going to happen, like if this conversation happens, Rich, where somebody says to me, Indy's gone woke, my answer is Indy's always been woke. Karen Allen was woke.
Yeah.
Kate Capshaw wasn't. But, Last Crusade, Elsa is kind of woke. She decides not to be a Nazi, even though she's still working for them, right? She doesn't burn the book. She doesn't turn Indy in. So she's kind of like a strong heroine, too. I think we're going to have a real tough time with, I think we're going to have an idiot brigade in a couple weeks. And I'm going to be really angry with the idiot brigade. And I'm going to I'm going to try to figure it out. Let's see. So Spielberg's ex-wife now, Ken, laugh out loud.
Did he and Kate?
I don't think they get divorced. No, they're together. They're still together.
Okay. I generally don't follow that kind of stuff. But yeah.
No, Joe. They're still together. And then most of us did, but boy, was she a screamer. Yeah, sure. But again, I think it's a different trope. I think Indiana Jones, all of these Indiana Jones movies, except when we go to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which is next week, all the Indiana Jones movies give us some sort of feminine trope that they're playing off of. Karen Allen is the tough bar chick. Willie Scott is the damsel in distress stage singer, right? Elsa is the
femme fatale.
The femme fatale learned German, right?
Yeah, she's in it for herself. And she is willing to use her smarts as well as her sexuality to get what she ultimately wants.
What she wants. Yeah, she wants the grill. Yeah. So it's ours, Indy. We're leaving. I love this movie though, and I love the Connery and Ford. There's a moment like the comic moments between them are so good, Rich. The 10, 11, 12, and Connery's like, what happens at 11?
Yeah.
Or the sequence where he's winding his watch and he's just disdainfully, after Indy's dispatched all the Nazis, and he's winding his watch and he purses his lips, and then Indy looks at him like, do you appreciate nothing I've done for you, old man? Nothing?
There's a great moment when after Indy first crashes into the room at the castle, and then the Nazis come in, and basically Indy just commits 4 murders in front of his father, and that's probably the very first time. I mean, Indy, the
burning to death that he does to those people. He uses a Hitler skull to murder them all. A Hitler statue to murder 4 people. I mean, I enjoy the movie immensely. I was looking at the action sequences tonight to try to figure out, they're more in line with Raiders. But one of the things about Temple of Doom that is sticking with me as we do the rewatches, Temple of Doom is it's batshit insane, Rich. But I'm really getting to the point where I think I'm a Temple of Doom apologist. I love Last Crusade, but I think Temple of Doom might have jumped up for me. It's always going to be Raiders.
Interesting.
But I think Temple of Doom, Temple of Doom is their swing for the fences and for immaturity. And I appreciate that a great deal. Joe wrote, sorry about my mistake. I thought I read this, but that's okay, Joe. That's where we're here for answers. And then, so let's get to this legacy and franchise viability. So first and foremost, we don't get the ride into the sunset. We get the 4th movie coming out in 2008. We also get,
before that, we do get Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which, like I said
and
before,
a lot of comic books.
Yeah.
With Indy going after various things in comic books and comic book series. We also get Ben Burt wins an Academy Award for sound effects editing, which has to be discussed. Connery gets a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actor, so those are all nice. Here's one that's kind of a funny legacy one. So they used the area of Petra to do the Last Crusade, the place where the knight is. Up until the point of the world, only a few thousand visitors a year made the trip to Petra for that particular, the series of buildings that are right into the stone granite. And it was only a few thousand visitors per year. Because of this movie, as of right now, in the year 2023, that particular spot gets 1 million visitors a year. Because everybody wants to ride off into the sunset like Indiana Jones. And I think that's an incredible legacy when you're a hero on screen and you actually cause people to want to be. It's very much the closest I can come is the series of trips that occurred after Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies. Yes. Right? The series of trips that occurred to New Zealand to see where they filmed the Lord of the Rings. It's the closest thing I can come with, but it is one of the, Petra actually got into a series of troubles when they officially named it Petra, that place from Indiana Jones. And they got a cease and desist from Lucasfilm. So it's an incredible story, and I think the legacy here is one of the legacies is a missed legacy, right? They literally could have had the greatest adventure hero in the history of American cinema ride off into the sunset. They choose not to, right? It's a bittersweet thing, because here's and this is a take I'll say every day and twice on Friday, and I'll say it on the show and I'll say it to you. A bad Indiana Jones movie, or Indiana Jones movie that isn't Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is every other Indiana Jones movie, is still better than half the movies we get, Rich. So people can bitch, moan, and complain, and they can talk about they don't like Shia LaBeouf, but you know what? That bike sequence at the beginning that we're going to talk about next week is pretty good. I don't like monkeys, but that ant sequence is pretty good. I don't like aliens. Okay, but you're okay with arcs, and you're okay with the Holy Grail washing away bullets. So we're gonna get there.
Yeah, we specifically on that point. I do have a couple of thoughts, and we'll get into those then. But yeah, I mean, Dark Horse did some comics after this, and I wish they would collect them all into like a nice omnibus volume. Hell, I wish Marvel, because they're all under the Disney umbrella. I wish Marvel would release a Further Adventures of Indiana Jones Chronicles omnibus, which is a series they did after Raiders came out, and it ran for, I want to say, about 3 years. Now I've got a bug in my ear, so I want to look that up while I'm talking. And it started off, the first 2 issues were done by John Byrne, who is right at the height of his 80s work at Marvel. He was also doing Fantastic Four and X-Men and Alpha Flight and a whole bunch of other stuff. And
the clickety-clack of a reporter trying to get information for you people.
Yeah.
God love you, Rich.
And it was a lot of fun. Let's see. Marvel. The series also featured, Marion, of course, and Marcus. There was a 1-story arc I remember where Marion and Indy go back to Tibet because they find out possibly Abner Ravenwood is still alive. Sala, Katanga, and even Short Round show up because they run all the way past the release of Temple of Doom. So they give that some time. The ran 34 issues from January 83 until March of 86.
That's my only concern about the new movie is that we didn't get the Ke Huy Quan revival quite soon enough to get him into the movie, because I feel if he was in the movie, people would be losing their goddamn minds. But
true.
I think the legacy here is also this is one of the few times where they started a trend where they were adding fathers. Like, you know, they would have characters show up and then they would be like, and this is his dad. It was a famous actor playing them. There's a lot of comedies that come out in the 2000s that have that kind of like, you know, major actor showing up playing somebody's father. And it is one of those trends that, you know, everything goes back to Last Crusade and making sure you're picking the perfect father for the perfect actor. And I do like, as a legacy, that it is where it is the culmination. It is the circle point of the franchise. We created Indiana Jones and Raiders because we wanted an American James Bond. We got Sean Connery for Last Crusade, and we brought them together as it's a focal point where the franchise kind of melts in on itself, and it's like, it's so cool that that's what they were going for, and that's the actor they got. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One last comment. We got a comment. Ken writes, if they redo Young Indiana Jones, do you want it to be a period piece, 1910s or 20s, or more modern, like a great-great-grandson? I don't like anything. I think you could go back and maybe do. How about this? I'm gonna meet in the middle, Ken. How about we, you know, if Harrison Ford doesn't want to play him on screen anymore, how about we just make it animated?
Ooh,
how about we do an animated series a la Batman the Animated Series, and we get some of the Indiana Jones adventures that are not, you know, maybe hour-long adventures on Disney Plus that are, you know, that bring back great characters, and, you know, an older short round, or you know, things like that. I don't know that we're gonna get a period piece. I don't know that you're gonna do Indiana Jones Jr. Do you know what I mean? Like, the concepts that we have to try to keep this IP alive. I am of the mindset, Rich, and you know, as we get into Crystal Skull and as we get into Dial of Destiny, I am of the mindset that I'm okay letting it go. I do feel that Ford is distinct. Like, I know everybody's like, "Oh, it's the American James Bond, so we need a new Indy." I think two things. It's not like James Bond in the sense, because one actor's played him in totality, right? Whoever decides or signs up for the next Indiana Jones movie, you're going to run into all kinds of issues that are not conducive to you succeeding, no matter who it is. If it's, you know, people talk Pratt, people talk Chris Pine, you know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine either one of them with successful careers going, you know what I want to do? I want to step in Harrison Ford's shoes, when he has specifically gone on record saying that I have, you know, I've been promised that once I stop playing the character will end. I'm much more inclined, I should say, not adapt, much more inclined to say, make an animated show or do something like that, make it creative. Or maybe, you know, do an animated show about Short Round, or do an animated show about, you know, some of the other Indiana Jones characters, you know, it's something like that keeps the IP alive, but doesn't, pardon my French, fuck with Ford.
I would say
I think it's suicide.
I would say the obvious is do something with Short Round as an older, you know, in his 20s,
somebody
30s.
Went into his footsteps.
Yeah.
Perfect.
If you were to reboot Indy and it doesn't turn out to be a fool's errand, my instinct is to say you got to keep it as a period piece in the 30s and 40s. It's just the world was bigger in a way. The world had hidden areas to it still. In a time where we have satellite mapping, globe trotting adventurism like this doesn't seem to want to fit in correctly.
Yeah, it's really weird when you don't need a Google map. You're your map is going from one place to another on the plane you're on.
Yeah.
I agree with that totally. I think it does have to be a period piece. Let's see. Joe says there was an animated James Bond Jr. Why not Indy Jr.? I think it would be looked as a cash grab. I think it would be looked at as a cash grab. And I also don't think that, I think the people that love Indiana Jones are more apt to rewatch the Indiana Jones movies than to showing their kids Indiana Jones Jr. Like, I really feel that wholeheartedly in my soul, that I think, it's like when my nephews get old enough, I don't want an Indiana Jones cartoon show. I'm going to show them Raiders. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's something where I just think it won't work. And I think whatever actor decides, I hope it's not somebody I like, because I will be more inclined to give them a chance. But I'm also going to be like, I also tend to view it, I think it's going to be career suicide. I think it's going to be one of those things. It's not like Bond, where, if Indy isn't a character you can change with the times like Bond. You know what I mean?
No.
Craig's Bond can be different from Connery's Bond. Connery's Bond can be different from Roger Moore's Bond.
True. Even though I still think Bond works best in the 60s.
Sure. No, I agree with that. It works best as a period piece. And I think that'd be an interesting way to go with the next Bond, right?
Mm-hmm.
Indy is always in the same spot. He's a 30s serial character. So I think you run into problems there. July 1st, Indiana Jones will be 124 years old. July 1st, I'm hoping we're not talking about that he'll be 124 years old, Ken. I'm hopefully we're talking about one of the biggest days of the box office in the summer of 2023.
Indy's birthday is canonically July 1st, 1899.
Exactly.
That's mentioned in Young Indiana Jones, I think it is.
Leave it to the British to master having multiple people playing the same character. Yeah, no. I think there are instances where a character can be played by other people, but I think this particular character, am I wrong on this, Rich? Do you think that the franchise viability, I think it's a kiss of death. I think Ford has said nobody should play the character. I think you're going to get, unless we get to a point where Ford has passed away, right? I mean, then maybe, right? But you're still going to get people like me and you who go, crotchety old people, who go, Ford said nobody should play Indy. Why are you doing this? Right? And then we get there. And the other problem, and this is a minor concern, but because we do have our first Indiana Jones film not directed by Spielberg. I haven't seen Dial of Destiny yet. I don't know what Mangold does. Mm-hmm. But the idea of making these Indiana Jones movies is not some fool's errand that anybody can just rush into. You need a particular director. You need a particular skill set. The idea that Spielberg and Lucas and Ford have created these movies and have stuck together for the most part, except for Dial of Destiny, does not bode particularly well to try to remake the franchise. I don't know. Let's see. Joe writes, I think the guy from The Hangover can do Indy justice. Ken writes, Joe, Bradley Cooper? And Joe writes, yes. Here's the problem with that, Joe, and I will say this to you. Bradley Cooper is already signing up to do what is theoretically career poison, in a sense of a movie that's getting remade by Spielberg, by the way. So I'm very inclined about this. There are rumors that Bradley Cooper is going to be playing Bullet, that he's remaking Bullet with Spielberg. So would you say Bradley Cooper is going to do Steve McQueen and Harrison Ford? I would say no. That I would say Bradley Cooper should definitely work on Star is Born like projects. I like the one he's working on right now. I think what is he doing? He's doing Elmore Bernstein, right? He's doing I think he should stick to stuff like that. Natasha wrote, Bond and the Doctor. The beauty is you came in at any time. Indiana Jones is not possible to do to keep it going in modern day. It doesn't have a good opening.
Opening in terms of, I think, and forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, Natasha, in terms of how to segue from one era of an actor to another era.
Yeah, I don't think it does either. I think you're right. It has to be a period piece. Bradley's too old from Natasha. Natasha is the person that looks at these things. She's very careful about these things. And then Henry Cavill is available. I think Cavill is very happy doing his Warhammer stuff, and I don't think he's going anywhere near this.
Warhammer, that's it. I think he's going to be off doing that.
Rich, correct. Very good. And then he said that's as bad as the Roadhouse remake. I actually think the Bullet remake has a. Well, the Roadhouse remake, I don't know what's going to happen, but the Bullet remake, again, Bullet is a great movie, but it is a one scene movie, right? I mean, if you can replicate that car chase for the Fast and the Furious world we live in now, I think you can get a good Bullet remake. But this is the end of our Last Crusade talk. And what I'm going to say is next week we have the most controversial of the Indiana Jones movies. A movie that caused all kinds of it's this one. It's Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. We will end
which I have not gone back and rewatched in quite a while. So.
I haven't watched it in a while, although I will say I caught it, I think, on a TNT re-airing a couple months ago. And I say this to you, Rich, I don't think I hate it. I think there's good pieces to it. I think I will say one thing that I think the Crystal Skull thing does get right. Bringing Marion back is the right thing to do. What we do with Shia LaBeouf, what we do with other characters, bringing Marion's the right thing to do. They have Ford and Karen Allen have amazing chemistry together. So we'll see what happens there. Let's see what else. Last two comments, people. That ain't happening. Okay. And then Steve McQueen can't be replaced. I love Steve McQueen too. But if you look at it, they've already remade a couple of Steve McQueen's movies. I agree that Steve McQueen can't be replaced because the energy you get from him in, say, The Magnificent Seven, right, was tried to replicate by Chris Pratt. But the problem there with Pratt and Denzel Washington is that Pratt and Denzel Washington didn't hate each other. Whereas Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen hated each other. So the reason he's so cool in the Magnificent Seven is because his energy was throwing Yul Brynner off. But that was about the car chase. Yes. Natasha, am I to understand that you don't think Steven Spielberg can stage a car chase? I'm just throwing it out there. We will see. Rich, where can people find your stuff?
Oh, my stuff is all over the place.
Well, then also, where can people find a review of a certain Indiana Jones movie that's opening in 2 weeks when your embargo's up?
Well, that's probably going to be next Monday at this time. And all of my writing is available at FILMBUFFonline.com. Plenty more reviews I still have lined up coming out from Tribeca from last week.
And a big interview with Sav Rogers as well from Chasing Amy.
Mm-hmm. I am also two other podcasts that I do. The first is the Big Picture Podcast, which I do with my lovely co-host and
commenter tonight.
Commenter blowing it up tonight, Natasha Bogutsky. And I'm also, as a member of the Philadelphia Film Critics Circle, on the Film Scribes, which is that organization's podcast. I know we're recording something this coming weekend, so that'll be out, next week at some point for that. And I can be found on Twitter shooting my mouth off about movies, TV, comics, and occasionally my some politics stuff at FilmBuffRich. And just a reminder that while we're talking about Disney stuff, Secret Invasion premieres on Wednesday.
You've seen the first two episodes.
Yeah, I've seen the first two episodes. My review is up at FilmBuff Online. But it's a slow burn, but I kind of like it. It does a lot of table setting these first two episodes. I think the first episode ends with a real wallop, And the second episode ends with a real wallop of a much different kind. And I'm not going to spoil any of that. And I don't spoil it in my review either. But it'll be interesting to see reaction to both of those things. And I'm anxious to see what else they have up their sleeves for the other 4 episodes. So
yeah, it's a short run, 6 episodes. Mm-hmm. So It's going to be a quick bang through the summer. You can find my stuff, JW the Movie Guy, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We also have a little show we call Loud Nerdy that we do on Tuesday nights. Sometimes Rich, but he's more here than he is there. And a couple other folks that come in and we talk all kinds of fun stuff. We're going to talk about The Flash. We're going to talk about different things tomorrow. And I do that every week. We have a Loud Nerdy group. So if you like this show, if you like hearing what you do, by all means, join the Loud Nerdy group. We ask interesting questions. The question this week, and I want you to think about this, Rich. I'd like your answer for next week. Okay. Somebody got into somebody I was talking with, we had a really long tussle about the idea of originality in Hollywood and the idea that originality in Hollywood is dead because studios are forcing us to watch bad movies. And my response to that is, 1, the studios understand how to make money, and 2, the studios are giving audiences what they want. If you come up with a list of 10 movies and the 10 movies are all sequels or reboots or franchise movies, that's what people want. Mm-hmm. So it's the chicken or the egg theory? Is it the audience's fault for forcing the studio's hand and saying we're going to make money, and then the studios take that money and sometimes make smaller movies, right? That they release Oscar bait, right? That the bigger movies kind of finance, or is it the studios who have killed originality and are only giving us a force-fed diet of sequels and reboots? And
my reaction to that is generally twofold. First, it's somebody complaining that things are different from when they were a kid or when they were younger, and therefore, because it happened when they were younger, it intrinsically has more value. So anything new now sucks, which is bullshit. And 2, where was I going with this?
I don't know. Intrinsic bullshit is where you're at.
Yeah. 2, I think it's just kind of if you are only seeing movies you don't like, you're probably not looking for movies hard enough. There have been a lot of good stuff that's flown under the radar that's on various streaming services.
Well, and that's what I said in this discussion. What I said is, yeah, the top 10 movies are reboots and sequels, but from 10 to 20, you have 6 movies that are originals that did very well, but they're not going to do Avatar numbers. They're just not. You know what I mean? And so I think it's an interesting discussion. But we'll talk more next week. In Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull next week. Joe says, great show, guys. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks,
You're
Joe.
always so nice.
Always appreciated.
Have a great night. Stay awake. We'll see everybody for next week. And Crystal Skull, and we'll fight and we'll chit-chat and talk about it and why we don't like monkeys or Shia LaBeouf. One and the same? I don't know. Have a great night, folks. Thanks for joining us.